much, Icon Entertainment. And ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the room. We're happy to see you back into the room. And hopefully you are well fed with the lunch. And I am sure you took a lot of proteins during lunch, because that's what we need to endure the long day. And we still have 2 panel sessions in this second leg of the day. So ladies and gentlemen, we did talk about the role of government's policy and shaping a robust food ecosystem in the very first panel. And now we are going to enter the second panel discussion. So this will focus on the untapped potential of the blue economy in fostering food security in Indonesia. We know we have a vast ocean and we have a lot of proteins inside the ocean as well. And we want to have more Indonesians eating proteins from our oceans. And for this particular session, it will be moderated by my colleague here, Rory Ashari. So Rory, take it away.
Alia, thank you so much. It's really interesting that you mentioned about protein, and we have lots of fish and
Indeed.
fisheries potentials, right? But sometimes it is overlooked and not well maximized. So here, we're going to be talking about the untapped blue economy, how to maximize our marine as well as fisheries potential in the second segment. So thank you very much. And as we all know, ladies and gentlemen, oceans are central to Indonesia's economy through many activities, such as captured fisheries, aquaculture, coastal tourism, marine construction, as well as transportation. And Indonesia has the second largest fishery sector worth around 27 billion US dollars, creating 7 million jobs and over 50% of the country's animal-based protein needs. So the opportunity to pursue a blue economy in Indonesia is very wide open and very lucrative. But at the same time, Indonesia also faces challenges such as population growth, tidal flooding and sea tide rise, marine debris, and we all know that Indonesia is the second biggest polluter to the ocean after China. And we also have challenges such as oil spills and overfishing. Then the questions are, for this second discussion, how can we maximize blue economy for the betterment of Indonesia without sacrificing the environment? And how can we actually boost the development of aquaculture to have a greater impact to Indonesia's economy? There will be 4 experts sharing to us today to share with us invaluable insights. First and foremost is Professor Rohmin Dahuri, Indonesia Aquaculture Society. Secondly, Dr. T.B. Hairul Rahayu, API MSJ, Director General of Aquaculture, the Ministry of Maritime Affairs and Fisheries. Mr. Muhammad Rahmat Mulyanda, SPI MR, Director of Marine and Fisheries of the Ministry of National Development Planning of the Republic of Indonesia. And last but not least, Bapak Ardi Budiono, President Director PT Suritani Pemuka, part of Java Group. Alright, so let's bring them all to the stage, the 4 panelists. I think I would like to invite Professor Rohmin Dahuri, Dr. T.B. Hairul Rahayu, Mr. Muhammad Rahmat Mulyanda, as well as Mr. Ardi Budiono. Gentlemen, please join us on stage, and thank you so much for being here. We are still waiting for Professor Rohmin because he is still performing prayer. It's the Zuhur prayer time, so we'll be waiting for Professor Rohmin. But for other gentlemen, please make yourself comfortable, and I'd like to maybe read a bit of their background before we get to know what they have to say or what they have to offer in terms of their insights, in terms of their ideas to us today. So I'd like to introduce you Mr. Muhammad Rahmat Mulyanda, SPI MR. So he is the Director of Marine and Fisheries of the Ministry of National Development Planning. And before that, he was the Deputy Assistant for Aquaculture Development of the Coordinating Ministry of Maritime and Fisheries. Pak, selamat datang. Terima kasih Pak Rahmat atas waktunya. He obtained maritime studies from the University of Wollongong, Australia. I believe this was your master's degree, right? And for the bachelor degree, Budidaya Perairan from Institut Pertanian Bogor in 1993. And the second speaker would be Dr. TB Hairul Rahayu, BMSJ, Director General of Aquaculture, the Ministry of Maritime Affairs and Fisheries. Let's give a big round of applause for Pak Hairul. So Pak Hairul is the Director General of Marine Spatial Management back in 2021, but now is the Director General of Aquaculture. So it's going to be very specific about this topic that will be delivered by Pak Hairul. And he was also the Director General of Marine and Fisheries Resource Monitoring. And he obtained his PhD from the Fishery College 1993, Ghent University in Belgium, and earned his PhD from the University of Indonesia, I believe, in 2009, and graduated from the Fisheries College in 1993, and as well as Ghent University in Belgium in 2001 for his master's degree. And last but not least, we are still waiting for Professor Rohin, but I'd like to introduce you first to Bapak Ardi Budiono, the President Director of Suri Tani Pemuka. This is part of JAPFA Group, I believe, Pak Ardi. So Pak Ardi Budiono is the President Director of PT Suri Tani Pemuka. This is specifically aquaculture division of JAPFA Group, one of the leading agri-food companies in Asia, headquartered in Jakarta. Mr. Ardi has joined the JAPFA Group for over 20 years, so he knows what he's talking about later. Leading the aquaculture division of JAPFA Group since 2017. And prior to this, Mr. Ardi served various positions from operation manager to head of FIT for JAPFA India. And he graduated from Royal Melbourne Institute of Technology, or RMIT, in Australia. So gentlemen, thank you very much. While we are still waiting for Professor Rohmin, I think I would like to give the opportunity first for our first speaker to Bapak Hairul Rahayu. Are you okay? Okay, so it's pointing fingers now. Who's gonna present first? Who's gonna present first? Pak Muhammad Rahmat Mulyanda. Pak Rahmat or Pak Dirjan first, right? Pak Hairul first, the Director General of Aquaculture, the Ministry of Maritime Affairs and Fisheries. Thank you so much, Pak Hairul, for being with us today. Please welcome Mr. Hairul Rahayu.
Wow.
Anyway, you can use the podium if you would like to, or just sit on your, yes. Please do, if that makes you more comfortable, Pak.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam.
Selamat siang, salam sejahtera buat kita semua. Salam, Om Swastiastu, Namo Buddhaya, dan salam kebajikan. Good afternoon, everybody. This is a difficult time for me actually, because to be honest, the first speaker should be Professor Rohmin Dahuri, and the second is my colleague, Pak Rahmat from Bappenas. I'm only a DG from Ministry of Marine Affairs and Fisheries. But anyway, since the professor is still performing for the Juhur Premi, so I would like to share with you. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm DG of Aquaculture. So a lot of issue now being developed by our ministry. But today I would like to talk based on the mandate given to us, to me. We would like to discuss, we would like to talk about the ocean governance and policy framework for a sustainable future. Next slide, please. So there are two sub-themes that I would like to share with you. First, national policies supporting the blue economy. The second, the role of the government in enforcing sustainable aquaculture practices. Both theme is given by the committee to me, of course. So let me start with the first theme, national policy supporting the blue economy. Next slide, please. Yes, next slide. So, ladies and gentlemen, when we are talking about the blue economy, of course, many considering we have to talk about it. First, we believe now since Mr. Prabowo and Gibran delivering the Asta Cita, it was mentioned the blue economy in Asta Cita number 2, food self-sufficiency and the blue economy, ya, ketahanan pangan dan blue economy. And the second one is Asta Cita number 5. Downstreaming and industrialization, and then Asta Cita number 6, economic equality and poverty eradication. So I think this is the consideration about how the blue economy now being developed by our ministry. Others consideration is about the SDGs. Yeah, many SDGs involved here, but I do believe at least 1, 2, 3, 4 SDGs involved in this blue economy. SDGs number 1, of course, no poverty. SDGs number 8, decent work and economic growth, and SDGs number 13, climate action, and then SDGs number 14 is quite direct relation to KKP or Ministry of Marine Affairs and Fisheries, is talking about the life below water. And other issues such as Rio Convention, you know, and other framework convention, regulation and norm being Pak Prof, punten saya jadi tipayun ya. Yeah. Sorry, I talk in bahasa Inggris with the Pak. Yeah, yeah. So let me continue. And then how the blue economy now implemented by the KKP or Ministry of Marine Affairs and Fisheries. So now we implement 5 pillars of blue economy policies for sustainable marine and fisheries sector. Yes, we do believe that it's not so easy. So many challenges, of course, there, especially economic pressures, and then increased global population, and then increase global protein need. So at least 3 point challenges, how to say, effect to the 5 pillars of the blue economy. And what the end of the final target, the ultimate goal is we would like to improve, to enhance, to increase marine and fisheries stakeholder welfare. That's, I think, the final destination. And then we consider as the blue economy, our minister, Mr. Sakti Wahyu Trenggono, always, state that we have to balance between ecology and economy. So ecology as the commander. Yeah, so we have to consider as well about the environmental sustainability. And then we took one of the target of Mr. President. We have to reach zero poverty and 88% growth. So I think this is the big scheme of the blue economy now being developed by KKP or Ministry of Marine Affairs and Fisheries. Next slide, please. So when we are talking about the blue economy, of course, it is related directly to the ocean, directly to the sea. Yeah. So I would like to share with you how important role of the sea for life. If you understand that now everybody believe 90% the source of water on the earth is in the sea, and 50 to 80% the total oxygen in the air come from the sea as well, and then 30 to 70% the carbon dioxide produced is absorbed by the ocean, and then 90% excess heat on the earth is absorbed by the sea as well. So actually, we realize, how benefit the ocean for human life. And then the other 3 is the sea support activity economy. Like now, we believe that ZAPA is doing this sector, and then the sea provide food source, and then the last but not the least, sea provide employment as well. So I think this is the important role of the sea for the life. Next slide, please. Yes. So, still talking about the ocean, still talking about the sea. So now I would like to share with you about the potential. So what's actually the potential of marine and fisheries sector? So Indonesia, marine condition influence the global climate and the richness of marine biodiversity. So you can imagine here, you can read it, high marine biodiversity and marine resources. We believe now that mega biodiversity, about 8,500 marine species. Yeah. And then 12 million ton per year potential for sustainable fisheries production. And then more than 50 million ton per year marine aquaculture production potential, and etc. etc. So now why KKP, Ministry of Marine Affairs and Fisheries, took this issue, blue economy, because as I mentioned before, the final target to increase, to improve the welfare. Yes.
Pak Heru, sorry
Yes.
for the interruption. I forgot to tell all of you that we only have 5 minutes for the presentation,
la la.
as the total of this discussion will only be 60
yeah,
minutes. So you still have 2.5
Okay,
minutes,
I'm
sir.
already finished then.
Okay, take your time, but not too long.
Yes, next slide. I try to speed up. Yes, challenges in marine and fisheries sector. I would like, okay, I can skip it, yeah. Human activities, pressure, climate change, IUU and overfishing, ocean pollution, of course, is become our challenges. Yeah, next slide. Yes, this I would like to little bit, how to say, go into more detail. So, 5 pillars of the blue economy policy now is being developed by KKV. Since our mandate to protect the ocean and its resources, so the first policy we try to expand a marine protected area. Ya, in bahasa we call it meningkatkan konservasi. Ya, if the ocean index of ocean health is increasing from time to time, of course that is getting better for us. So one, it is reached already, so we move to another mandate given to KKP. The second mandate, we have to reduce pressure from destructive fisheries activity. So there are 2 policies. Yeah. First policy, we try to control the capture fisheries by implementing quota-based fishing policy. We realize when we control the capture fisheries, but the reality, the population is getting increased from time to time. So we have to develop aquaculture. So that is why the third policy is sustainable development of aquaculture in marine, coastal, and inland areas. Okay. And the third mandate is we have to preserve the marine area. As you probably know that we have a lot of islands, more than 17,000 islands. So we have to consider surveillance and control about the coastal area and small island. When we talking about the small island, about 111 small island now in Indonesia. And then the last but not the least is controlling plastic waste in the sea. Yeah, as just mentioned by Mr. Lori, yeah, Indonesia now is number 5 contributor for waste plastic. 3 years before is number 2 in the world after China. Yeah. Next slide. Yes, the last one. Okay, I would like to talk about the second theme. It's about the role of the government of enforcement. Next slide, please. Yes. Yeah. This is the last slide for sure. Yeah. So when we are talking about the second theme, I would like to share with you how the strategy actually being developed by the KKV. So the strategy Last time, the professor, Pak Rohmin, always talk to me. We have to this, we have to this, we have to this. Yeah, but at least we try to accumulate this. First, we believe that our strategy, we try to revitalize the aquaculture area. So that is why, if you heard it now, we now working on revitalization in Pantai Utara Jawa, not part of Java area. And then the second one, we create a modeling of aquaculture area using good aquaculture practices. Yeah, why? We realize that 70 to 80% fish farmer, including the shrimp farmer, is still being adopt the traditional method. So we have to improve the good aquaculture practices. And the last strategy, we try to develop and encourage local economy by creating the aquaculture villages. So this is three strategy now being handled by KKP, especially DG of Aquaculture. What the target then? Yeah, the target, sustainable and competitive marine, coastal and inland aquaculture. It can go into more detail, such as sustainable aquaculture production, can be fish, shrimp, seaweed, and others, and then sustainable fish resources. When we are talking about sustainable fish resources, of course, we have to consider about the next generation. Yeah, and then prosperous for fish farmer and advanced, modern, sustainable aquaculture industry, and the last thing, to increase GDP of fisheries. I think that's all. Next slide, please. Yeah, we now working with the 5 priority commodities. First is shrimp, second is seaweed, third is tilapia, crab, and lobster. Why we consider this? Because you can see from the slide how big the market size is. Yeah, such as shrimp, the market size is about 84.8 billion. And then next coming 10 years is about 149 billion. So the market share in Indonesia still low, about 6.7%. So I think this is a good opportunity for us, especially for Java, yeah, to provide feed. Yeah. Yeah, but please, gentlemen, the price not so expensive. Yeah, that's the last. Okay, next slide. Yeah, how to implement this blue economy? We try to hand in hand. You know, we try to reach. We try to ask people from the academician, business, and then community, investor, and media. Many people call it that multi-helix approach. If we can do together, if we can sit together, if we can develop together, I do believe the final target that I have already mentioned can be reached as soon as possible. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Pak Hairu. Wow, we've got so much potentials in shrimp, seaweed, tilapia, crab, and lobster. But one thing for sure, for business players, please don't set the price too high, as we want to, liberalize, and we want to maximize the consumption of marine products for Indonesians, right? So, Professor Rohmin Dahuri, it is a great honor for us to have you here on the panel. So, welcome to our panel discussion. A bit of a background of Professor Rohmin Dahuri, Indonesia Aquaculture Society. So Professor Rohmin Dahuri continues to provide invaluable insights as an advisor to the Minister of Marine Affairs and Fisheries from 2010 to 2014, as well as 2020 to present times, and to the governors of 10 Indonesian provinces from 2010 to present times, and for marine and fisheries economic development. His leadership extends to various prominent positions, including serving as a member of the Indonesia House of Representatives, or DPR RI, Commission 4, in which he just got elected. Congratulations once again. And he's also the president of the Indonesia Aquaculture Society from 2010 up to today. And Professor Rohmin Dahuri holds a PhD in Coastal and Marine Resource Management from Dalhousie University, Halifax, Canada, obtained in 1991. Let's now give the pleasure for Professor Rohmin Dahuri to please present your presentation. It's going to be 5 minutes, sir, and hopefully that will be enough for you. Let's give a big round of applause for Professor Rohmin Dahuri.
Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. May God peace and mercy be upon all of us. Good afternoon. Because 5 minutes I don't have to, greet you all, but for sure my senior Professor Bungaran Saragi, not only as my professor but also as colleagues at the cabinet of Kiai Haji Abdul Wahid and Megawati Soekarno Putri. Next, please. Next. Right. So I would like to share with you very briefly about the role and potential contribution of blue economy towards Indonesia as advanced, prosperous, and foreign country, or we call it right now Golden Indonesia. Next, please. Number one is the fact that Indonesia is resources country. We are the fourth most populous country on earth, and last but not least, that the geo-economic position of Indonesia is very strategic. 45% of total global trade flowing through our sea waters, and the economic value of that global trade is about 15 trillion US dollar. Just for your information, our gross domestic product right now only 1.4 trillion US dollar. This economy 15 trillion US dollar per year. So according to Goldman Sachs, McKinsey Institute, University of Indonesia, that the potential economic growth of Indonesia actually 10% per year. So it should be big question. Why during the last decade, our economic growth averaged only 4.9%. So this is big question. Because President Prabowo knows better than previous president, so he make target the economic growth should be, 10%, 8%. Sorry, because you limit my time, so you just read this one. Next, please. And okay, so in order to achieve Indonesian Golden Indonesia, according to most of the economists in Indonesia, President Prabowo is right. 8% per year is must. Number two, we have to improve the quality of our human resources through free lunch meal year program, through education, through health services improvement, and so forth. Okay, and as the largest archipelagic on Earth, I am sure the potential of blue economy can serve all the mission of this current cabinet, including economic growth, food self-sufficiency, energy self-sufficiency, and so forth. Next, please. Next. I don't want to, because this is a 60 pages presentation, because I'm too serious to share with you in this very highly important seminar. So just what you call skip, yeah? So my style of presentation, statement, and then, supported by data, graphics, and so forth. Okay, the meaning, because Pak Ardi and Pak Samsir Siregar asked me to share with you what is the animal of blue economy. Next, please. So to me, blue economy is a response to correct the failure of capitalism. What are the failures of capitalism? Number one is poverty. Up until now, 3 billion world citizens still living under poverty line. So meaning about 40% of world citizens still poor. Number two is we are facing so-called triple ecological crisis: pollution, biodiversity loss, and global boiling. Not only global warming, but already boiling. Yeah? And then last but not least is widening economic inequality, or the gap between rich and poor keep widening. Next, please. So there are at least 6 definitions about blue economy. Number one is that blue economy, don't be confused. The blue economy is the application of green economy in coastal and ocean areas. That as simple as that, okay? Other definition, I think just ramification. Next, please. Next. So if I can summarize, blue economy is economic activities including production, distribution, and consumption that take place on coastal areas and ocean, and economic activities on upland or terrestrial ecosystem that use natural resources from coast and ocean to produce goods and services needed by mankind on sustainable basis, on environmental friendly. So as simple as that, the definition about economic, blue economy. Next, please. And this is the supporting activities. Next, please. So this is according to the European Union that blue economy can be categorized into two groups. Number one is established economic sectors like fishing, aquaculture, marine tourism, sea transportation, and so forth, while emerging or future blue economic activities like desalination in Saudi Arabia, marine biotechnology industry, including pharmaceutical product, and so forth and so forth. Next, please. So this is just to give you an idea about the what we call the variety of blue economic sectors. Next, please. Next. 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 We at IPB Bogor already calculated, go back to the previous slide, that Indonesia has at least 11 blue economic sectors, from capture fisheries, aquaculture, biotechnology, and so forth. And the total economic value is about 1.4 trillion US dollars. So meaning about 1.2 the current size of Indonesian economy. Next, please. And the potential of employment is about 45 million. So Professor Bungaran, if we manage coastal or blue economic development on professional basis and on innovation basis, the potential employment is about 45 million people. So meaning about 35% of unemployment problems in our country can be solved. Next, please. Next. So this is so if you refer to the definition of food, according to law number 18, 2012, food is anything that comes from biological sources, agricultural products, plantation, forestry, fisheries, livestock, water, and whether processed or unprocessed, which is intended as food or drink for human consumption, including food additives, food raw materials, and other material used in the process of preparing, processing, and making food or drink. So based on that definition, to my humble understanding, there are 9 sectors. Number 1, food crop. Number 2, horticulture, plantation, animal husbandry, non-timber product from forestry, aquaculture, capture fisheries, marine biotechnology, and salt. Next, please. So I don't want to present all these supporting slides. So next, please. Terus saja Pak, di scroll. Next, please. Terus. Oh, I don't want to give you preach that fish is indeed, in terms of nutrition and healthy function, is much better than red meat like beef and chicken actually. So fish not only make you smarter and healthier, but also make you stronger. So for those elderly who make a relationship with your wife normally 5 minutes, by eating fish, you can increase it 30 minutes. So eat more fish. Next, please. Next, terus saja Pak. Terus, next. Terus, next. So this is, with it. So kembali ke atas. So in terms of potential, Indonesia has the largest potential in terms of fisheries production. About 115 million metric ton per annum, and up until now, Pak Dirjen, we just utilize about 20%. Meaning the room for expansion, right, in developing fisheries, be it aquaculture and capture fish, is very, very large, but to help Presiden Prabowo ambition about 8% economic growth. Next, please. Terus saja. Terus. And Indonesia since 2009 already sitting on the second rank of fisheries production. Number 1 is China. We are number 2 in the world. Yeah. Next, please. Next please, terus saja. Bab selanjutnya terus. Next, this is Java Confit product, certainly the best product on earth, maybe Pak Ardi. Next please. So I will get the marketing fee from Pak Ardi and Pak Samsir. Next please. Next. Now, this is, I want to, entice you that talking about aquaculture is not only producing fish, mollusks, and crustacean, but also producing algae, invertebrate, and basically all marine biota can be cultured on what we call water ecosystem, right? Next, please. So based on this definition, Pak Dirjen, we so far only produce conventional product, like for animal protein from fish, from mollusk, from crustacean, right? And then also we have seaweed and oyster. But I would like to encourage all of us in order to meet Pak Prabowo mission 8% growth, Pak Dirjen, yeah. I think we have to, develop non-conventional commodities and product from aquaculture, including bioenergy, biomaterials, and so forth. And this is not theory, because in Sidoarjo and in Lombok, the company from India already started producing bioplastic and biostimulant from seaweed. Yeah. So this is good news. Next, please. Next, please. Terus saja, karena waktu ya. This is just to give you example, yeah, that aquatic biota not only for food but also energy, pharmaceutical products, and so forth and so forth. Next, please. Terus. Next, please. This is the industrial tree of seaweed. Next, please. Now, unfortunately, Professor Bungaran, up until now, we Indonesian probably utilize only 10% of marine biotechnology potential. So the remaining is imported from Malaysia, like gamat and so forth. Next, please. Next. This is good news for Professor Bungaran. When I was visiting Chinto Ocean Institute, Professor Bungaran, back in 2018, yeah, in China, it's already been able to cultivate or rise in marine ecosystem. Look at this, with the production or productivity about 4.5 tons per crop. So meaning about 9 tons per crop. So when I was accompanying President Megawati, meeting directly with President Xi Jinping, when President Megawati asked President Xi Jinping why Chinese government very eager and aggressive in developing coastal and ocean areas. And the reply of President Xi Jinping like this, Madam President, with 1.4 billion citizens, if China rely only on land for food and other commodities, will be finished. So why China is very serious and very productive in developing marine science technology, including with genome editing or DNA sequencing and DNA recombinant, to produce this kind of species from originally freshwater species can thrive in marine ecosystem. Next, please. This is the potential of blue economy for energy. I have experience back in 2010 with IPB Bogor, already identifying about 13 species of microalgae, and it's concerned about 15 to 24% of hydrocarbon. But so IPB since 2010 was already able to produce biofuel for microalgae, but the price still very expensive, which is about 14,000 rupiah per liter, while from solar at the time is only 8,000. So in developed and prosperous countries, this kind of company or university should be subsidized first. Yeah. Next, please. But in short, that the potential of blue energy from marine biota is huge, Professor Bungaran. Next, please. Next. Terus saja, terus. Next. Next. This is the flow chart of producing bioenergy from marine biota. Next, please. Next. Terus. Next, please. This is Israel. Next, please. Next. 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 So in 2017, next please, President Jokowi, what we call given task to IPB University to produce blue energy from microalgae. Next, please. Next. Next. This is the product of IPB Bogor with respect to biofuel from microalgae. Next, please. So, with Bogor University has planned to develop about 2 million hectare of coastal land, which is about 0.3% of Indonesian seas. If we can develop 2 million hectare, and then we can produce about 2 million barrel biofuel per day. Right now, we still import about 400,000 barrel per day for oil, right? Can you imagine, if we can produce biofuel with 2 million, and the current demand for fuel in Indonesia only 1.4 million, okay? So that we can export what we call about 0.6 million barrel per oil per day.
Professor Rohmin, I'm afraid our time is up.
One more slide, please. Next, please. Next, please. Terus, Pak, terus. Next. Final chapter, terus. Problem and challenge, I think you can read it from me, okay? Next, please. Next. Nah, this is the solution. Next, please. Next, please. Next. Okay, number one, Pak Dirjen, I think we have to revitalize of existing or established blue economic sectors for what? To increase productivity, efficiency, and sustainability. Number two, Pak Dirjen, this is very important in this moment. We have to safeguard, to maintain from the provocators or those who are jealous, existing investment and business in blue economic sectors. For example, marine tourism in Raja Ampat, shrimp farm in Karimun Jawa, what's that? Kids that based tilapia aquaculture in Lok Tobalik, and mariculture of grouper, Baramandi, and so forth. Number two, we have to expand development and investment of blue economic sector in new or pristine areas and region. Number four, to develop, invest, and business in new emerging blue economic sector, including offshore aquaculture, marine biotechnology industry, deep sea water industries, ocean energy. Next, please. One more slide, Professor. The implementation of the above policy should be based on, this is very important, Pak Dirjen, on 5 principles. Number one is economic of scale, and last one is sustainable development principle. And then we have to revitalize existing infrastructure. Number 7 is affirmative banking policies. And then number 8 is we have to do capacity building in order to provide skill and high quality human resources. Next, please. And number 9 is improvement in R&D to produce and disseminate innovation to users, including fishermen, fish farmers, and so forth. And then number 10, rehabilitation of degraded coastal marine infrastructure ecosystem from pollution, sedimentation, abrasion, and other environmental degradation. Number 11 is conservation, not only at species level, but also at genetic and ecosystem level. And number 12, mitigation and adaptation. And last but not least, number 14, this is very important, because when I studied at IPB, actually 70% of variable which determine the success of blue economy is actually non-technical factor, Pak, not technical factor. Next, please. This is the last slide. Next. So, Prof. Bungaran, you can see the interest rate in Indonesia is one of the highest in the world there. So we 8.9, while Vietnam only 7.8, and so forth. Next, please. So this is the allocation of what we call bank credit. So our sector, fisheries, Pak Dirjen, is only 0.3%. Yeah. So I think one of the major reasons, despite big potential of big blue economy, but the contribution of blue economy still very, very low. Thank you so much. Terima kasih. Hatur nuhun. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Professor Rohmin Dahuri, thank you so much for illuminating us on many aspects of blue economy sectors in which it is worth 1.3 trillion US dollars. There is a huge amount of potential, and the solution how to maximize blue economy in Indonesia, as you mentioned, and I'd like to dig deeper later, is that the success of blue economy is sometimes not based on non-technical factors. So what are the factors that hinder us from realizing the maximum potential of blue economy? Would like to dig deeper later. But now I'd like to give the opportunity for Bapak Muhammad Rahmat Mulyanda, SPIMR, the Director of Marine and Fisheries of the Ministry of National Development Planning, to present his presentation for 5 minutes. Let's give a big round of applause for Pak Rahmat Mulyanda.
Selamat siang, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam.
Yang kami hormati Mas Rinaldo, Pak Prof. Bungaran Saragi, para jajaran direksi, jajaran direktur, komisaris PT Java, dan juga semua peserta meeting hari ini, siang ini. In the corner we can see a translator. So to test them that he can work properly, allow me to speak in bahasa Indonesia, ya. So we can know that the translator has a good job. Bapak Ibu, sebetulnya saya diminta mewakili Ibu Vivi, Bu Deputi yang sebenarnya diundang pada acara ini, namun dikarenakan beliau tidak ada di Jakarta, jadi beliau menugaskan kami untuk menyampaikan paparannya. Lanjutkan. Oh, diprosesnya. Jadi saya sendiri di Bappenas sebagai Direktur Kelautan Perikanan. Makanya baju saya ini gambarnya batik ikan semua. Batik ikan. Jadi saya mempromosikan makan ikan dan pakai batik ikan. Jadi Mas Rinaldo harus pakai batik ikan kalau kita sesi tentang perikanan. Ya, jadi memang harus promosi ikan Pak Rohmin ya. Jadi Bapak Ibu, saat ini kalau berdasarkan tren dari pertumbuhan populasi dunia, kita perhatikan ada tren kenaikan yang signifikan. Itu masih Bu Deputi ya, jadi lanjutkan aja slide kedua. Ya, lanjutkan slide kedua. Ya, terus. Nah, ini kita perhatikan. Jadi tren penduduk dunia semakin meningkat, tren konsumsi ikan semakin meningkat juga. Artinya ada hubungan yang korelasi positif antara pertambahan penduduk dengan konsumsi ikan. Jadi Mas Rinaldi sudah benar nih Java mengambil core bisnis di bidang pangan, karena semakin banyak pertambahan penduduk semakin banyak butuh pangan. Jadi untuk itu core kita dalam kaitan produksi pangan harus kita tingkatkan untuk konsumsi pakan dan pangan, untuk konsumsi pangan di dunia dan pun di Indonesia. Slide berikutnya, kalau kita perhatikan pola konsumsinya, ternyata negara-negara semakin negara itu maju, semakin banyak konsumsi ikan. Jadi kalau kita perhatikan tren di sini, kita perhatikan negara-negara seperti Norwegia, Jepang, selamat datang, konsumsi ikannya semakin bertambah. Nah untuk itu kita perlu, selamat datang Pak. Ya, thank you so much. Jadi kita perlu meyakinkan diri kalau Indonesia ke depan ingin menjadi negara maju, pasti konsumsi ikan semakin meningkat. Karena semakin sadar bahwa ikan lebih sehat untuk konsumsi. Gitu ya hubungannya. Selanjutnya lagi. Kita perhatikan berikutnya bahwa kebutuhan pangan ke depan, ya, berdasarkan dari kelebihan dari sisi nutrisi dan sebagainya, dan dikaitkan dengan tren di global, di Sustainable Development Goal, maka ikan memiliki nilai tambah yang luar biasa. Ya, di sini kita lihat keterkaitan berbagai SDG program dalam kaitan konsumsi makan ikan. Selanjutnya lagi, isu yang paling krusial adalah terkait climate change. Ini tidak bisa kita nafikan, tidak bisa kita hindarkan. Climate change akan menjadi bagian yang selalu kita dipertanyakan sejauh mana Indonesia bisa comply dengan sistem baru untuk produksi. Bagaimana sustainable production, bagaimana sustainable consumption. Bagaimana climate change, ya, isunya bisa kita mitigasi dengan baik dari produksi pangan kita, termasuk peternakan misalnya. Sekarang kan di Tenggarai bahwa peternakan banyak menyumbang untuk gas metan dan sebagainya. Nah, bagaimana ikan ternyata berdasarkan dari carbon footprint paling sedikit. Jadi perikanan merupakan salah satu komoditas yang relevan dengan isu climate change. Bisa sedikit karbon jejak karbonnya dalam sistem produksi perikanan. Itulah kelebihan daripada Blue Food. Berikutnya lagi. Nah, selanjutnya bagaimana kita mengintegrasikan Blue Food ini ke dalam sistem pangan Indonesia. Lanjutkan. Ya, Bapak Ibu ya, saat ini sedang dituntaskan RPJMN. Tadi pagi Pak Menteri sudah menyampaikan bahwa dalam waktu 1 bulan ke depan sudah keluar RPJMN baru di awal tahun yang menjadi rujukan untuk 5 tahun ke depan pembangunan. RPJMN merupakan dokumen referensi untuk perencanaan di tingkat nasional yang dihubungkan nanti dengan perencanaan di daerah. Dan itu tidak hanya mencakup dari sisi pemerintahan sebagai aktornya, namun bagaimana peranan daripada dunia usaha, akademisi, NGO dan sebagainya sebagai pelaku pembangunan bisa bersama-sama mencapai target-target dalam RPJMN tersebut. Itulah posisinya seperti itu. Jadi ini dokumen bersama yang kita acu bersama-sama sebagai sebuah orkestrasi para pelaku pembangunan. Semua aktor kita libatkan yang sebaik-baiknya. Selanjutnya kalau kita perhatikan tadi pagi juga Pak Rajendra dari FAO sudah menjelaskan transformasi dari sistem pangan keseluruhan, bagaimana perikanan aquaculture yang inovatif, bagaimana quota based fishing, dan bagaimana rantai nilai yang lebih efisien kita bangun secara lebih komprehensif untuk mendukung kebutuhan transformasi sistem pangan di Indonesia. Ini menjadi keharusan karena sebagai negara kepulauan terbesar di jagat raya, Indonesia harus menjadikan konsumsi ikan ini sebagai utama lah dari penduduknya. Karena akan ironi apabila penduduk di Indonesia yang notabene negara kepulauan ternyata tidak suka makan ikan. Ini tantangan kita semua untuk menjadikan ikan merupakan bagian daripada unsur utama konsumsi ikan, konsumsi pangan di Indonesia. Selanjutnya kita perhatikan apa tantangannya ya dari sisi permintaan dan juga penawaran. Kita perhatikan ada beberapa aspek yang perlu kita juga antisipasi. Dari sisi demand terkait bagaimana populasi yang meningkat, bagaimana akses kepada pangan yang lebih sehat dan sebagainya. Kemudian dari sisi supply-nya adalah bagaimana kita mengupayakan small scale fishing ini bisa berproduksi lebih produktif. Bagaimana teman-teman dari JAPA bisa nanti membuat kolaborasi kemitraan yang baik dengan misalnya usaha-usaha kecil. Mereka berdayakan dari sisi kemampuan produksinya dan juga bagaimana mereka standarisasi produknya. Bagaimana mereka comply dengan traceability produknya. Bagaimana mereka menjaga lingkungannya semuanya. Harus kita bangun bersama-sama antara kolaborasi perusahaan-perusahaan besar dengan usaha-usaha kecil. Yang tadi pagi juga Pak Menteri sampaikan pentingnya kolaborasi dengan koperasi-koperasi ataupun usaha-usaha kecil yang ada di seluruh penjuru tanah air ini. Selanjutnya, berikutnya adalah masalah ketersediaan dan aksesibilitas. Bagaimana kita memproduksi produk perikanan bisa didistribusikan secara baik ke berbagai pasar-pasar ataupun pusat-pusat konsumen untuk dapat memperoleh dengan memadai. Ini tantangan karena masih adanya kelemahan dari sisi rantai pasok kita, distribusi kita, konektivitas kita, sehingga produksi perikanan yang bagus satu area tidak bisa tertransmisi dengan baik kepada pusat-pusat pengolahan. Misalnya. Ini menjadi tantangan. Dimohon juga nanti kepada Java dan juga link bisnisnya untuk mengoptimalkan ya sistem rantai dingin yang ada ya, dengan membangun rantai dingin yang masuk ke bagian pelosok ya, melibatkan juga sistem yang terpadu ya, juga dengan mungkin marketing yang pakai platform dengan teman-teman pada milenial, ada Kang Ruli dari startup digital macam-macam ya. Kita bersama-sama membangun ekosistem bisnis yang sama-sama mengembangkan kemajuan untuk semua pihak, private, milenial dan juga usaha-usaha kecil menengah. Berikutnya lagi, terakhir ya terus Bapak Ibu, jadi kami di Bappenas sekarang sedang melakukan Blue Food Assessment untuk mengkaji sejauh mana Blue Food ini menjadi concern kita ke depan. Jadi ini ada arah baru untuk pembangunan masalah ketahanan pangan dari sektor perikanan ya. Kita angkat isu Blue Food ini menjadi tagline yang mungkin akan kita perkuat ya programnya. Blue Food itu apa? Apa beda dengan seafood? Apa beda dengan yang dulu-dulu terminologinya? Tentunya dengan terminologi Blue Food ini diharapkan bahwa aspek sustainabilitasnya menjadi concern ya. Ini ada aspek nutrisi, lingkungan, small scale aquaculture and fisheries ya, equity dan productivity dan juga value added. Ini hal-hal ini kita kaji secara komprehensif sehingga hal-hal yang mesti menjadi tantangan pada pengembangan Blue Food bisa kita address sejak awal. dengan demikian pada 5 tahun ke depan ya program-program pengembangan Blue Food ini bisa lebih terarah dan tersistem dengan baik dari mulai pusat ke daerah. Dari pusat biasanya terkait small scale aquaculture, bagaimana perbenihan yang mampu membuat produk induk unggul yang benar-benar kredibel lah, terstandar, benih-benihnya bagus. Sekarang kan susah tuh. Cari induk unggul yang bisa produksi banyak ya, benih-benih yang terstandar kan susah. Bikin hatchery belum tentu semuanya terstandar. Nah ini tantangan kita semua bagaimana urusan perbenihan juga menjadi penting ini. Untuk betul-betul kalau kita ingin memproduksi aquaculture dengan baik, maka prasyarat awalnya induk dan benih harus juga dipersiapkan. Makanya Pak TB Heru dengan program dengan loan dari ADB sedang membangun pusat untuk broodstock center udang di Bali ya. Yang tidak diharapkan menjadi sepadan dengan di Hawaii ya sebagai produsen induk unggul udang yang kredibel di tingkat Asia Tenggara atau di Asia. Ini saya pikir perlu dikembangkan terus termasuk untuk komunitas-komunitas lainnya yang ada di Indonesia, apakah itu ikan ataupun seaweed ya. Lanjutkan lagi.
Pak Rahmat, mohon maaf sekali waktunya sudah habis.
Oke, 1 minute. Just last slide please. Last slide please. Ya. Closing remark. Jadi Blue Food tidak diragukan, tidak disangsikan merupakan sumber protein yang bersifat strategis jangka panjang ke depan. Jadi Mas Rinaldo ya, pengembangan perikanan mohon dapat terus dikembangkan secara optimal. Nih ada Pak Dada ya yang atau Mas Ardi ya untuk divisi aquaculture. Ini karena ini perikanan ini akan semakin diperkuat untuk kontribusi kepada sistem pangan. Dan orang semakin sadar pangan sehat, healthy diet tadi bilang ya, daging yang putih lebih sehat. Ini akan membutuhkan produk-produk Blue Food yang lebih kuat. Berikutnya bagaimana kita bisa mengintegrasikan hulu hilir dengan baik ya, dari mulai perbenihan ya, kemudian juga masalah produksinya, pengolahan, pemasaran dengan sistem lebih efisien. Kita sama-sama bangun kerjasama dengan pihak berbagai pihak ya. Tadi Pak Rahmi menyampaikan bagaimana swasta perbankan bisa kita endorse juga dengan takut-takut memberikan kredit kepada perikanan ya. Sekarang kan masih ada ketakutan dianggap sektor yang high risk sehingga sedikit sekali kredit masuk ke sektor perikanan kelautan. Nah ini kita harus dirubah mindsetnya dengan upaya kita bersama bahwa perikanan kelautan adalah sektor yang perspektif ke depan, tidak mengkhawatirkan, tidak harus ditakutkan. Kemudian bagaimana multi stakeholder partnership ini ya, kerjasama antara pemerintah, pusat daerah, swasta ya, Bapak Ibu sekalian di sini, koperasi, usaha kecil ya, kemudian akademisi, NGO dan juga media dan lain sebagainya, para pelaku pembangunan kita perkuat untuk menuju Indonesia Maju 2045. Demikian, terima kasih. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Pak Rahmat from Bappenas, thank you so much. One thing to note is that it is important to integrate fish into our daily meals and to make sure the distribution chain of fish products is optimized. Next, we'd like to have Bapak Ardi from PT Suri Tani Pemuka. Let's give a big round of applause. 5 minutes for you, Bapak Ardi.
Good afternoon. It's an honor for me to be in the stage with the very important people, in the blue economy in Indonesia. Today everybody talk about the blue economy, right? And the blue economy actually cannot be separated, from innovation and sustainability. To be able to achieve, this vision, I think we have to have those two, right? Next, please, yeah. Blue economy becoming a very hot topic, nowadays that people talk about it, and it's because the blue economy plays a significant role in reinforcing sustainable use of ocean and aquatic resources to support economic growth. The value, as what has been mentioned by Pak Rahmat and Prof, is significantly high. And also to improve the livelihoods, ensure ecosystem health. The product itself, very rich of omega-3 and also high protein. That's why it's very, very important, essential protein that we people can consume. Yeah. Next, please. With rich biodiversity and over 20 million hectares of aquaculture potential. Indonesia is very, very strong, to become a leader in driving the blue economy in the world. I think everybody agreed that because I think Indonesia now is the second longest coastal, after Canada in the world. And also, as mentioned by Prof. also, the biggest archipelago country in the world. So I think there is no reason that we cannot be the leader in driving the blue economy in the world. This strength holds significant potential for the aquaculture industry, including us, STP. Yeah. Next, please. Now, we commit to support the blue economy program in Asia and to accelerate the development of the blue economy in Indonesia. We actually already set 3 main focus program: research in technology and innovation, environmental stewardship, ensuring food accessibility and affordability. Next, please. Yeah. In doing research for the future sustainable aquaculture, we aim to minimize the dependency to the wild catch. For that, STP has built the ARC, or Aquaculture Research Center in Banyuwangi, that conduct series of aquaculture research, such as research in aquaculture practices, where we try to find the best practices, the most economical and efficient in doing the fish and shrimp farming, and also to produce the high quality broodstock of larvae for marine fish and also the freshwater fish from garupa, barramundi, tilapia, pangasius, and also the eel product, and also to increase the production of marine and freshwater species. Recently, our ARC has been successfully hatched 70,000 larvae of high-value tropical eel, Anguilla bicolor. I think this is the first time in the world, so we are very, very proud to do that. It's still in the process of, to get the right SOP, to be able to, we call it commercial stage. And this really, really reduce our dependency of wild catch. Usually we search for the glass eel in the sea and culture it. But now I think in the future, I think we can do our own hatching. For that, we collaborate also with a few universities, local and also international, Kindai, UMS, Brawijaya, IPB, and so on. Yeah. Next, please. Now, in concern about the environmental stewardship, there are 3 things that we also focus to achieve that, sustainable aquaculture practices. To minimize the waste, make sure that whatever we're doing, we're not gonna damage the environment, and also try to use, the byproduct, not only in our production, also what we produce, also we try to add value on the byproduct. For example, like in our production, we use also the, they call it cangkang, the waste of coconut shell, and also in our production of tilapia, the skin also we sell it for the collagen, for cosmetic, and so on, so the bone we collaborate to make a fish meal and things like that. So really no waste. So, and second thing about conserving the water and optimizing the use of natural resources. Because aquaculture depends so much on the water, fresh and sea, so we have to make sure that we use the water very, very efficiently. And then to enhance the sustainability and long-term viability, we also have to collaborate with a few stakeholders, to achieve this, from the government, the farmers, and also the company industry like us. Yeah. Next, please. Now we have to ensure that the food is accessible to everyone and affordable. We cannot just keep on producing and achieve the blue economy, but yet people cannot afford and buy the product, So to achieve that, I think we have to work very efficient in operation. We have to make sure that the cost production is as efficient as possible and can be the alternative of protein source. And traceable broodstock and fry. I think Pak Rahmat just mentioned recently, just now, that we already built the BMC in Bali, Broodstock Multiplication Center for Shrimp. And then we started like 2-3 years back. So I think now it's ready. We are ready to support the shrimp production in Indonesia because we already have the broodstock, so that we don't have to import so much, and can be produced locally. And besides that, we also have ARC for the broodstock for fish. We also built the broodstock center and nursery center for tilapia in Kerawang. And currently, yes, the number is not sufficient to support the industry yet, but we use it for our own customer. But in the future, I think we can expand, Dijen, so to support the revitalization of the Pantura. Thank you. And then promoting the value in seafood in balanced diet, I think it's also important because it's so rich of essential minerals, omega-3, and very high protein. Just recently, the Gemar Makan Ikan also we participated. We delivered the baramandi for kids, to taste. This is expensive fish, but when people taste it, the fish are so good. I think they enjoy the fish, and I think they will be really Gemar Makan Ikan, Yeah. Okay, next please.
Pardy, I'm afraid the time is very limited.
Okay.
I don't want to sound like my grandmother, but I have the duty to make sure that we are on time.
Okay, thanks. So we also partnering with the stakeholders for like shrimp estate in Kebumen, fish estate in Kerawang, and also we participate in the Global Shrimp Forum and also in other exhibition and other forum to promote the aquaculture in Indonesia, and the product actually is very, very good. We export our tilapia to almost 20 countries, and people like it, and they consider it's the best tilapia in the world from Toba. So I think Indonesia can be really the champion of the seafood product, if we do it correctly. Yeah. Our last slide, please. Yeah. Blue economy represents a transformative opportunity to address global food security while sustaining our planet's resources. STP, as a Java Aquaculture Division, commit to this vision through research-driven innovation, sustainable practices, and our unwavering commitment to environmental stewardship. So I think if we work together, collaborate, I think we can make it happen. But thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Pardy, for your presentation and for your insights you shared. All right, ladies and gentlemen, before we start our Q&A and our discussion session, I'd like to remind you bahwa Anda bisa men-scan barcode yang ada di kartu name tag Anda. Yang ada di posisi atas, Anda bisa men-scan untuk Anda memasukkan pertanyaan yang mungkin ingin Anda ajukan. So you can actually scan the barcode on your name tag to join our discussion and Q&A session. We will then pick several questions out from there. Now I'd like to start off with Professor Rohmin Dahuri. Professor, you mentioned really eloquently and really beautifully that Indonesia has 11 blue economy sectors, 1.3 trillion US dollars, but it is not still fully maximized. And in terms of aquaculture, I have a data that is quite sad to me because 7.2 million hectares of potential aquaculture area in Indonesia, but almost 50% of them are not well maximized, are not well utilized. Why are we not so utilizing the potential that we have, as Indonesia has, one of the longest coastline in the world, and we are not maximizing that potential? Why is that?
The answer is history, because as you know, since colonial era, our development paradigm is basically land-based, development.
Right.
So I think the awareness of top decision makers, be it president, minister, regarding the strategic value of blue economy is, to me, still very low. That's reflected in the management input. As I said, look at the allocation of bank credit is only 0.3% for blue economic sector. Can you imagine? So as you know, blue economy is a passive asset, right? So without proper management input like financing, technology, human resource, infrastructure, the passiveness is remain there. So it cannot be converted into you know, prosperity, job creation, things like that. So that's why in my recommendation, if we have already successful companies, for example, like Java, to the best of my knowledge, Regal Spring and other, you know, shrimp farm in our country, we have to, you know, protect them. If they have mistake, we just correct the mistake, right? Because the poverty rate, what's her name?
Rory.
Rory, right? You often invited me to TVRI, right? So, because the poverty rate according to Statistics Agency only 9.03% or 25.5 million people. But according to the World Bank, with slightly higher poverty rate, Indonesian poor is still 112 million people.
Right.
So about 37%. So I think it is a big mistake for any what we call leaders in Indonesia, including minister or president, if hampering the investment, development, and business activities. Once again, if there is any company which make mistake, we have to correct the mistake,
Right.
not closing that company, because
Okay.
we need job creation, we need economic growth, things like that. So
All
once
right.
again, the answer is history. So that's why during President Wahid presidency, it is the first time for Indonesia to establish marine ministry in itself. During 32 years of New Order era, right? The management of blue economy was under Ministry of Agriculture.
I
So
see.
it is our opportunity. From institution point of view, we have the right vehicle compared to Director General. The authority is much bigger as a ministry.
Thank you, Prof. Pak Dirjen, how to close that gap? There are still almost 50% of unused potential of blue economy, especially aquaculture in Indonesia. How to close the gap? And if it's because of historical history, right, or historical, passed down from our previous long ago government, then are we on the right track to realize the full potential of blue economy?
Thank you. Following the answer from the professor, actually this question is quite easy but difficult to be answered. Yes. I believe if all sectors can sit together, if all sectors can talk together, this situation can be solved. And I might suggest, in several occasions, I always talk, once we are talking about the natural resources, the license should be given from the central government. That make easier instead of separated to the local government. Yeah, but now we have to obey with the undang-undang. You know, the law. There is how do I say it in English? Autonomic law. You
Okay.
know? That's become difficult for us. We in the Ministry of Marine Affairs and Fisheries, the product is only regulators. Yeah, and then we continue with the, how to say, giving them the good guideline. Yeah, and the executors actually is not in the central government, but in the local government. Yeah, that is why we from KKP try to ask to motivate local government just to follow the regulation as comprehensive as possible. Otherwise, I agree with the professor stated, the situation is like this forever. And then the fish farm welfare will not reach in the short period.
Right.
Thank you.
So are we on the right track, Pak, to realize the maximum potential of blue economy?
Yes, we are doing, you know, we from time to time always coordinate all the sectors. Last time we have a coordinating ministry, you know, it was led by Pak Luhut, Ministry of
Coordinating Minister for Maritime Affairs and Investments.
Yes. But now, since Mr. Prabowo a little bit changed with the others nomenclature. But the task, I think, is more or less the same. Yeah. Now, we in KKP, we have to do into more detail to anticipate the gap that you have already stated.
Thank you, Pak Dirjen. I'd like to move on to Pak Rahmat. So, Pak Rahmat, as I learned, the government has set 5 arah kebijakan ekonomi biru. It's very clear there that we've got 5 directions of, you know, blue economy policy. What are the focus areas and priorities of this blue economy policy in relation to strengthening national food security, Pak? Mungkin bisa dijawab dalam bahasa Indonesia, that's okay.
Halo. Maybe I will reply in bahasa Sunda ya.
Wah, itu saya lebih susah lagi, Pak.
Sometimes my English is Sundanese language style. So as Pak TB Heru, Pak Dirjen mentioned that there are 5 commodities regarding the blue economy which will be what we call enforced. First is aquaculture, and then about the fisheries, quota-based fishing, and then conservation, and then combating marine debris, and one more, surveillance. Yeah. Aquaculture will be the focus to be a priority on boosting the productivity of the blue economy. Right now, maybe if we can see most of the aquaculture come from freshwater aquaculture. Hopefully we can empower the coastal aquaculture to make a new approach by introducing offshore aquaculture, maybe also some new commodities can be introduced for the offshore aquaculture, and also coastal aquaculture regarding the seaweed and some finfish culture. So to expand this program all over Indonesia, we should focus on one community, specific community for specific location. We cannot one community fit all with all area.
Yeah.
Not one for all, one fit for all. That's
One
not
size
approach.
fits all, yeah.
We should make a specification, one community in one area suitable for that community. So I think with the new approach from Pak Dirjen Aquaculture, hopefully we can make a significant improvement on aquaculture and boosting blue economy. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Pak Rahmat. And it's really interesting to note, ladies and gentlemen, that Pak Hairu, Pak Dirjen recently, just now, explained to us about 5 pillars of blue economy. If I may read it out to our audience, that the 5 pillars of blue economy are expanding marine protected areas, quota-based fishing, number 3, sustainable development of aquaculture in marine, coastal, and inland areas. Number 4, surveillance and control of coastal areas and small islands. And last but not least, it is about controlling plastic waste in the sea. Now, I'd like to move on to Pak Ardi Budiono. You mentioned about innovation, but it has also be hand in hand with sustainability, right? So, and you also touched upon the principle of circular economy. But how can actually principle of circular economy be applied to aquaculture system, particularly in reducing waste and creating value from byproducts such as fish waste and water, Pak?
Okay. Right, it's a good question. Yeah, in STP we actually really focus on the how we reduce the waste from our production. As your question about the in our fish, we actually export the fillet of tilapia, but the rest of the leftover product we turn it into other commodities such as the fish meal. You know, the fish bone, we work with the local company to make a fish meal that can be used again for feed, you know, and produce feed again for fish. So that is really, we call it circular economy. And then secondly, the fish skin, we work with a company to produce cosmetic. And then recently we launched a program in STP, we call it Jejak Bumi. Now what we do in the Jejak Bumi, in our factory in the feed mill, we collect all the plastic waste from the unused packaging and also the raw material packaging. We collect them and we work with the startup in Jawa Barat, and we produce furnitures, keychain, things like that, and we give it back to the customers as a gift. But the furniture, we use it in the office. So by doing that, I think we reduce the waste, but we also create another economy sectors, you know.
Right. So not only reducing the waste because you reuse the waste, but you also empower the community around your site, right? So Pilasia exported to many countries, and it is hatched and it is produced in Lake Toba, is it?
Exactly, yeah.
Wow. Let's give a big round of applause for JAPFA for creating this initiative. Now I'd like to focus on aquaculture. Professor Rohmin, Indonesia has the potential to be the biggest aquaculture player, right? But with this kind of policies, with this kind of pace that we have, what is the future of aquaculture in Indonesia in your global perspective?
Yeah, for me it's very bright, yeah. At least from two sides, demand side and supply side, as you mentioned, and I presented that in terms of production potential, Indonesia has the largest production potential, right? And then in terms of demand and market side, as population grows and the awareness of people regarding the, you know, better nutrition, better health efficacy of fish and seafood for human health, what else we need? If the demand bigger and then we have supply capacity also bigger, I think the prospect will be bright. But the challenge, as I said, the investment climate should be made conducive from permits process, like Director General of Agriculture mentioned, and then policy certainty, yeah, because remember from 2015 to 2019, the government, CQ, Minister of Marine Affairs and Fisheries, banned the transportation of live fish or grouper.
Right.
While we know that the highest price of grouper is in the form of live fish, about 1 million rupiah per kg, right? Once already fresh, by using, ice, the price, drop drastically, become only 300,000. Because of data policy, you know what? The hegemony of Indonesia become the largest, what you call, producer of grouper in the world, taken over by Malaysia, because in 5 years, can you imagine that what you call marine culture, what you call activities, especially grouper, just dead, yeah? So policy is very important. So, and then number 3, we have to create a more success story. Because as you know, human is economic, what you call, homo economicus, meaning, economic creature. So he will invest in one sector or in business activities if that sector is profitable and sustainable. So again, we have to create more success stories, be it in freshwater, in coastal waters, and in marine water. As we have more role models or success stories that the business in aquaculture is profitable, make the, what you call, the stakeholder prosperous, and on sustainable basis, I believe young men of Indonesia, millennial, Gen Z, Pak Dirjen, will be flocking around to our sector.
Right. And I believe policy is also the thing that you said non-technical that hindering us for maximizing our potential, right?
This is a very good example. When I was minister and Prof. Bungaran minister, I was minister of Marine Affairs and Fisheries. My budget only 4 trillion rupiah.
Right.
And Professor Bungaran only 6 trillion, Pak Dirjen. Right now, our ministry only 6.2 trillion rupiah, while Minister of Agriculture 29.2. Okay, so big difference.
Right.
Why, according to A1 information, President Prabowo very dissatisfied about the economic performance of, sorry Pak Dirjen, of our ministry and coordinating ministry of maritime investment.
Maritime and investment. All right.
Right. So the success of our sector is very important to convince Minister of Finance, President, and we Parliament member that the sector indeed can be game changer for Indonesia to be developed, prosperous, and sovereign country.
Professor, our time is up, but I'd like to have last words from all of you. I would give 10 seconds for each of you. Starting from Pak Dirjen, 10 seconds, last words from you, sir.
Thank you, Lori. Yeah, my last closing remark, aquaculture is quite optimistic for the future, but please do in the good manner. Thank you.
Okay, my closing remark, I agree with him, with Pak Dirjen, that aquaculture in Indonesia can be really, really powerful to drive the Swasembada Pangan program. Thank you.
Pak Rohmin, you have your own microphone.
I have it. Well, as my professional judgment that aquaculture has huge potential to be a panacea or obat mujarab of Indonesian sickness, including poverty, hunger, yeah, and so forth and so forth. But the key is the what we call implementation. We have to use innovation and professional management.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Pak Rahmat.
Let's strengthen our collaboration in making blue food for the blue economy, for the blue planet become better. Thank you.
Thank you so much, gentlemen. Collaboration, and we see the huge potential of Indonesia becoming the biggest global player in aquaculture. Let's once again give a big round of applause for all the panelists today. Thank you so much, and please stand in front of this table, gentlemen, as we'd like to present you with a token of appreciation. Therefore, we would like to invite Bapak Harwanto, Direktur PT Japfa Comfit Indonesia Tbk, to present the token of appreciation for all the 4 panelists. Kami persilakan Pak Harwanto. And would like to as well thank our 4 panelists, Bapak Hairu, Director General of Aquaculture, thank you so much. Kemudian Profesor Rohmin Dahuri, kemudian Bapak Rahmat dari Bappenas, dan of course Bapak Ardi dari PT Suri Tani Pemuka. We gain invaluable insights and new knowledge from your sessions, gentlemen. Boleh dari Pak Rahmat dulu, monggo silakan Pak. And it's also really interesting that Bapak Hairu also mentioned about the challenge of how to build or how to maximize the potential of blue economy. One is economic pressure, and then increased global population, and also increasing global protein needs. But then there are 5 pillars of blue economy that he also pointed out: expanding marine protected areas, quota-based fishing, aquaculture done sustainably, surveillance and control, as well as controlling plastic waste in the ocean. So let's take a picture together. Bapak, kami persilakan untuk berdiri di samping dari Pak Dirjen. Boleh kita berfoto bersama. Pak Romin di tengah. Gentlemen, 3, 2, 1. Boleh kita kepalkan tangannya Bapak, biar semangat. Kepalkan tangannya ke atas yuk. 3, 2, 1. Terima kasih sekali lagi untuk insights yang dibagikan. I'd like to give it back to Alia. Please help me, Alia.
All right, thank you very much, Rory. And it was indeed a very insightful panel discussion that we just had on this very second panel discussion of the day. Although what we heard from the discussion, although we were very much used to the land produce, but we're given such a vast ocean. So of course, this is what we have, and this is our potential. Indonesia has 11 marine economic sectors, and it's potentially estimated about 1.338 trillion rupiah per year. And just to summarize a little bit, the development of the aquatic food is part of the transformation of the food system, and the advantage of aquatic food as a source of natural animal protein. It is also highly nutritious and has a lower carbon footprint, so you're actually contributing to the health of our environment when you eat fish and the kinds. The potential of this blue food needs to be optimized to meet the public nutrition needs, reducing stunting rates, ensure food security and safety, and improve the welfare of these stakeholders. And of course, it will give a good welfare to especially the people who live in the coastal areas. And what we want to see and what we want to get is actually not only that we have sufficient food, but the welfare of the people, especially the ones who are on the front lines.